I'm going to talk about something today that I think all of us have in common, which is we're all trying to keep up with the changes in digital marketing and think about how to be better at and sharing the ideas from digital marketing, right? You see things happen like Old Town Road becomes the top of the Billboard charts a couple weeks ago for 17 weeks in a row. That song didn't just succeed because it was a great song. It succeeded because Lil Nas X was a savvy digital marketer. And so one thing we're going to talk about today is how we can better understand digital marketing and how we can better teach it to others as well. And so I want to start with a very simple question, which is, which of these three products or brands do you think get more word of mouth? Is it Disney, is it Cheerios, or is it Scrubbing Bubbles? And as you think about this, you'd probably say, okay, well, that's easy. I would say that Disney World gets the most word of mouth. Who would talk about Cheerios or breakfast cereal or kitchen cleaner? Those are not the most interesting things to talk about. Wouldn't you talk about Disney World? But if you look at the data, you see something surprising, which is that it's not Disney World and it's not Scrubbing Bubbles. It's actually Cheerios that gets the most word of mouth. And I think this points out two interesting things. First, we talk a lot. We talk and have dozens, if not over 100 conversations every day. And those conversations have a big impact on what we and others do. What we recommend and what others recommend to us shapes what we buy and what we do and so on. But we don't have a good sense about what we talk about at all. We don't think so much about what we talk about. And if we do think about it, we might get it wrong. Because if we guessed, I bet most of us would say, well, clearly Disney gets more word of mouth than Cheerios or Scrubbing Bubbles. But it's actually Cheerios that gets the most word of mouth. And I think that points out a little bit of a gap in our knowledge. There's a lot of hype out there around social media, around viral marketing, around word of mouth in general. And if we don't understand how it works, we don't understand why people talk and why they share, we're going to spend a lot of time and money and effort and energy in the wrong places. We've got to understand why and how to use that to get people to share. And so that's a quick introduction to a title slide. But as nicely mentioned, I'm Professor Jonah Berger. I'm a marketing professor at the Wharton School at the University of Pennsylvania. What I'm going to do today in the brief time we have together is give you a quick tour of my recent New York Times and Wall Street Journal bestseller, Contagious, Why Things Catch On. The book is all about the science behind word of mouth, about why things catch on, how word of mouth works, and how we can better understand its power. And so that's what I'll talk about today. I think we have at least a few minutes at the end for questions, but in case we run out of time, feel free to follow up with me at J1Berger on Twitter. So I want to start with a quote that I think is relevant for many of us that think about digital marketing, and that is that word of mouth generates more than twice the sales of traditional advertising. And when I talk about traditional advertising, I don't just mean radio ads and television spots. I mean any piece of company-generated communication. Anything comes from an organization rather than a peer, whether that is paid media or whether that is owned media. Any ads we might put on television, our website, any content that we create ourselves compared to what a peer might create. And if you think about it, word of mouth is more valuable for two key reasons. First, it's more trusted. Right? People are more likely to trust their peers than they are to trust an organization. And I think to help make that clear, it's useful to think about most ads that we see. Think about an ad, for example, for shampoo. Most ads for shampoo show a man or a woman with short or long flowy hair who use the shampoo, and then after they're done, they get an attractive spouse. You've never seen an ad for shampoo that shows someone who uses that shampoo and gets an ugly spouse, because no one would buy that shampoo, right? People want something that's going to make them look good. If you look at an ad for vacations, they always say the kids are happy. If you look for an ad for restaurants, everyone enjoys the food. But because ads always say stuff is great, because paid and owned media always say the product, the service, the idea is great, people don't know whether they can trust it or not. But their friends will tell it to them straight. They'll say, hey, I worked at this organization, they were great, or I worked with them and they weren't so good. I went on that vacation destination, the food was great, but there wasn't very much to do. Because our friends will be objective, because they'll tell us to us straight, we're more likely to trust what they have to say. So that's the first benefit of word of mouth. But the second is the targeting benefit of word of mouth. How can we find the right potential people that might be interested in what we have to offer? How, for a brand, can we find the next customers that might be in the segment that we're going after? And it's tough, right? We can use digital targeting with mixed success. Wouldn't it be great if we could find people that know that the others better than we do, that know who might be interested in us better than we do? And that's exactly what word of mouth does. It goes through a social network, almost like a searchlight, to find the person or people that'll find something most interesting or most relevant. A couple of years ago, I got a book in the mail. Academics often get free books from publishers. They send to us with the hopes that we'll assign them to our students and they'll sell more copies in the process. But this time I didn't get one book, I got two. And it wasn't two different books, it was two copies of the exact same book. I remember sitting there going, 2 copies, why the second copy? Well, there's a note in the back of one that said, hey, Professor Berger, we think you'll like this book, but we also think you'll know someone else who will like this book. Pass that second copy on to them. And that's exactly what I did, right? People tend to know others better than we do. And if we turn them into advocates, if we get them to talk and share, they'll do the targeting for us. No wonder that referred business, people that come in from existing customers, have about 20% higher customer lifetime value. Because someone else went out there through their social network to say, this person would like it and this person wouldn't. If you don't have a baby, no one's going to have a great website for baby clothes. If you don't like spicy food, no one's going to have a restaurant with really spicy curries. They pick what to share with you that fits best with your interest. And so another great example of this is Uber, right? A few years ago, they sent out this email around holiday season, said, hey, having a holiday party, request free rides for your guests here. And that's nice of them, right? Sending out free rides. But notice it's not just nice. Notice what they're doing. They say, hey, existing user, who in your social network might like what we have to offer, but aren't using it already, pass this on to them, right? They got their existing users to do the targeting for them. And so in addition to being more trusted, one of the big, powerful aspects of word of mouth is it does the targeting. Rather than having a sales team go out and pitch why a product or service is so great, how can we turn our customers into the largest and most effective sales team we've ever had? And that's what word of mouth does. If we can turn customers into advocates, we can get them to do the work for us. And so hopefully, in those quick couple minutes, I convinced you about the value of word of mouth. Now the question is, how do we get it? Right? We know word of mouth is valuable, but how do we get people to talk about our stuff? And usually, when we think about word of mouth, we think online. We think about Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn, blogs, online reviews. But if you had to guess what percent of word of mouth is online, what number would you guess? You might get 70% or 80%, maybe even 50%. Well, it turns out that only about 10 to 15% of all word of mouth is online. A much smaller number than we might think. Most word of mouth is still offline, face-to-face, around the breakfast table, at breakfast, grabbing a beer with colleagues after work, or having lunch with some friends. Most word of mouth is face-to-face. But more important, by focusing so much on the technology, we forgot about something that's much more valuable, and that is the psychology. Why are people talking and why are they sharing? Because you can have thousands of friends and followers and social connections online, but if the people don't share your stuff, it's not going to matter. I think this cartoon illustrates it really nicely. Right? Just because someone has thousands of Facebook friends doesn't mean a lot of people are going to turn out at their funeral. It's not about the number of connections we have. It's are those connections sharing stuff. There's so many people talking online, but there's much fewer people listening. And so the key thing to take away here is it's not about the number of connections and it's not about the technology. It's about the psychology. Because the platforms come and go. Will Facebook, will Twitter be here in 15, 20 years? Hard to say. But it's clear that people will be sharing online and off. And if we understand why they're sharing, we can leverage these platforms more effectively. And good news, it's not random, it's not luck, and it's not chance. There's a science behind why people talk and why they share. We've looked at thousands of pieces of online content, tens of thousands of brands, and millions of purchases around the United States and around the world. And again, we see the same 6 factors come up. In Contagious, I put those factors in a framework called the STEPS framework. That stands for social currency, triggers, emotion, public, practical value, and stories. Each of these is a psychological driver of why people talk and why they share, and leads all sorts of products, ideas, and behaviors to catch on. It's not about one vertical versus another. It's not about products versus services versus ideas. It's about the science of communication. Explains why we talk about what we're doing this weekend and why we did what we did last week. Talks about why we talk about some products and not others. And so my goal today will be at least the social currency, to start by giving you some examples of the science behind how it works, as well as some applications of how it can be applied. I won't have time to talk about the other 6. I may wrap up briefly by talking about stories, but there's lots of free content online to teach you about the other ones. And of course, you can check out the book as well. And so my hope today is to give you a sense of how you might teach some of these concepts in your classes or with the people you work with, and also how might you apply them to your own life. So let's dive into social currency. And to do that, I want to tell a story. I want to start by imagining that you're in New York City. Imagine it's the upcoming weekend. You're walking around the Lower East Side. Your stomach is rumbling. You got to get a bite to eat. When you notice a big hot dog shaped sign out in front of a restaurant with the words "Eat Me" written on it in what looked like mustard. You'd say, I haven't had a hot dog in a while. Check this place out. So you walk down a flight of stairs into a restaurant called Criff Dogs. Now, if you like hot dogs, you'll be in heaven. Criff Dogs has every hot dog you can imagine. They have a good morning hot dog with bacon, eggs, and cheese. They They have a hot dog, green onion, and pineapple, and a traditional New York style water dog with just ketchup and mustard. So you finish your hot dog, and you notice something unusual in the corner of the screen. This looks like a phone booth, one of those things that Clark Kent might jump into to change into Superman. Well, just for fun, you got a couple minutes, slide open that door and walk inside. It's pretty cramped in there. It's a phone booth after all. But on the wall, you'll notice something you probably haven't seen in 15, 20, maybe even 25 years. It's a rotary dial phone, one of those things that you used to have to stick your finger in and go around in a circle to be able to dial. And just for fun, you got a couple minutes, stick your finger in, go around a circle, and hold the receiver up to your ear. Well, the phone will actually ring. It'll go ring, ring. Then someone will pick up the other line, and they'll ask you whether you have a reservation. Reservation? I'm in a phone booth inside of a hot dog restaurant. What could I possibly have a reservation for? But if you're lucky, and you made a reservation, or they happen to have space, the back of that phone booth will open, and you'll be led into a secret bar called Please Don't Tell. Now, Please Don't Tell has violated a number of traditional laws of marketing. No sign on the street, no sign inside the restaurant. They've done everything they can to make themselves difficult to find. And yet, every day they're full. 3 p.m., phone lines open up. By 3:30, all the seats are gone. People frantically hit redial again and again and again, trying to get through, right? And it's not lack of competition, right? There are dozens of other bars in New York City, right? If not hundreds of other bars in New York City. So what did Please Don't Tell do to cut through the clutter? I mean, how did they get so much attention? Well, they did something interesting. They made themselves a secret. Let me tell you a little secret about secrets. Think about the last time when someone told you something and they told you not to tell anyone else. What's the first thing you then did with that information? Well, if you're like most people, you probably told somebody else, right? Because knowing something not everyone else knows gives you what's called social currency. It makes you look smart, special, and in the know. And so the main idea here is, well, too often, right, when trying to get people to talk about stuff, we make sure how we look. If I'm a brand and I want people to talk about my product or service, I think about, does the spokesperson look nice? Is the product nicely displayed on the screen? We think a lot less about how people look when they talk about that ad, how people look when they talk about my product, because the better that other people look, the more likely they'll be to talk and the more likely they'll be to share. So let's spend a couple minutes on this idea. I want to introduce you to a friend of mine. Her name is Carla, and this is a picture of a car. And I want to see how much you can guess about her based on this one piece of information. All right, so if you had to guess, for example, how old might you guess that she is? Well, you might say she's 35 or 40. Does she have any kids? You'd probably say yes. Do they play sports? You'd probably say yes. What sports do they play? If I'm a mind reader right now, I bet I can guess what most of you are thinking. And I guess most of you are thinking soccer. Am I a mind reader? No, right? I guess that you thought soccer because choices communicate information. The car we drive, but also the clothes we wear. People make inferences about others based on their choices. If we know someone drives a minivan, we assume they're a soccer mom. But it's not just what we buy and what we wear, it's also what we talk about and what we share. We make inferences about others based on what they talk about and what they pass on to us. If someone talks a lot about restaurants, we think they're a foodie. Someone talks a lot about technology, we think they know a lot about that. What they share is a signal of information, just like what they drive and what they wear. Right? If you look on social media, for example, most posts are positive. Hey, look at me, I'm on vacation. Hey, look at me, I met a celebrity. Hey, look at me, I'm in first class. There's so much room for my feet. Nobody posts though, hey, look at me, I'm at the office, working on Excel spreadsheet. Check out column C. I don't know about you, but I think most people spend more time at the office working on Excel sheet column C than they do on vacation. But I bet most of us would share the vacation photo and not the office photo because it wouldn't make us look very good. We share things that make us look good to signal desired characteristics to others. Great, that's true, everybody does it. So the question is, well, how can brands take advantage of that idea? And the simple point is, how can we make people feel like insiders? How can we make them feel smart, feel special, feel in the know, like they're not like everybody else? Right? Please Don't Tell did a great job of that. A bar hidden inside a hot dog restaurant, it's extremely remarkable. Right? But it's not just them. There are lots of other examples of this idea. So a couple years ago, I did a campaign with LinkedIn where we sent emails out to many of their users saying, hey, you're one of the most influential profiles on the website. Top 1% or top 5% of all profiles. Now, people who got that email felt good, but they didn't just feel good. They shared it with others. Tens of thousands of people shared it with others. Why? Because status is only good if other people know that you have it. Right? If you have status but no one else knows, it's not very valuable. So to get that status, you have to share. And that's exactly what people did here. Right? People don't care about LinkedIn. They care about looking good to their peers. But by sharing this message, they get that status and LinkedIn comes along for the ride. Go to an airport, right? People talk about, oh, I've got this frequent flyer status and that frequent flyer status. I'm gold this or platinum that or double diamond, whatever. What that person's really saying is I'm busy, I'm important, I travel a lot. But no one want to be friends with someone that would literally say I'm busy, I'm important, I travel a lot. So I have to figure out ways to brag without bragging. And brands, organization, content that lets them do that get to come along for the ride. Nobody cares about Delta, they care about their status. But by talking about their status, Delta is part of the conversation. If you ever see someone with an American Express black card, they pull it out at every opportunity. Why? Because it makes them look good. If American Express made a necklace that people could buy to put their black card in, they would buy that necklace. Because status is only good if other people know that you have it. And one way to get that status is by being first. And a couple of years ago, Beyonce had a new album, but she didn't do any advertising. She just put a picture up online because she knew people would want to be the first one to know about it and share it with others. You want to be the first one in their network to know this new information. But if you're first, if you have something before everyone else, it makes you look good. If you go on YouTube, for example, you look at the first comment on most videos. It doesn't say, I like this video or I hate this video. It says first, dibs. I got there before everyone else, right? Being before everyone else, being ahead of the curve makes you look smart and special and in the know and gives you that social currency. In the book, I talk about 4 ways to get social currency. Here, I'll just mention 2. The second one is to find the inner remarkability. And I think remarkability is really a nice word. It means worthy of remark. Something that's surprising or novel or interesting. We might think that certain things are naturally remarkable and others are doomed to fail, right? Hidden bars and Tesla cars might be easy to talk about, but other things are really difficult to get people to talk about. Well, let's talk about one example where a company figured out a way to solve this, and that is a company that sells one of the least exciting things we can think of.
فايز اعمل لك معايا سندوتش جبنه.
Just you know why
باندا ما يتقلهاش لا.
صباح الخير يا استاذ صفي. يلا يلا عشان الفطور. جايبه لك النهارده سندوتشات جبنه.
لا والله ماليش نفس. Just you know why you and I will by and by.
باندا ما يتقلهاش لا.
Funny, engaging story. Many of us, I'm sure, laughed and thought it was interesting, but you can't share that story without someone else without mentioning the word panda, right? It's not just something funny, it carries the brand along for the ride. And that's the idea of stories, right? Not just good stories, but Trojan horse stories. Think about the story of the Trojan horse, the Greeks, the Trojans, no one can win, so they build that big wooden horse, they hide their men inside. Engaging story on the outside, but inside is a kernel, a brand or an attribute that comes along for the ride, right? And it carries that message along with it. And that's what Please Don't Tell did nicely, and that's also what Blendtec did with their Will It Blend video, which hopefully the guys can show you as well. Right? They build a video where they show up an iPhone being blended, remarkable content, but on the way, right, you learn that it's a really powerful blender. Because if it wasn't a powerful blender, they couldn't cut through the iPhone. So it's not just great, fun, engaging content, it's content that carries the message along for the ride. So let me do the following. Given the tech difficulties, and I want to make sure we're on time for the next presenter, I'll just briefly mention the other steps and then I'll wrap up. As I mentioned, there's sort of 6 key steps to boosting word of mouth. We talked about social currency, which is how to make people look good, smart, special, in the know, like they're not like everyone else. Triggers, the idea is top of mind, tip of tongue. The more we're thinking about something, the more likely it will be to talk about it and share it. If you think about Rebecca Black's Friday, for example, that old video, it got spikes on attention every Friday. Geico's ad with the camel walking around going, it's hump day, gets a big spike in attention every Wednesday. Emotion, when we care, we share. Emotions are a key driver, what causes us to pass things on. But it's not just positive and negative emotions, right? Because some positive emotions decrease sharing and some negative ones increase it. And so I'll let you read about that in the emotions chapter. Public is easy to see, easy to imitate, right? If we can see something, we're much more likely to do the same thing and to talk about it. So it's built to show, it's built to grow. Practical value is all about news you can use, right? Useful information. When you think about content marketing, one reason it's so effective is people share things that is useful to help make others better off. And last but not least is stories, right? When people put their kids to bed at night, nobody shares bedtime facts. Right? Stories are the currency of communication. We share stories because they carry ideas along for the ride. And so as we think about applying these concepts, I think about using the steps, what I often say to people is look, start by figuring out that key kernel, that key message or idea that you want people to communicate, and then build the steps around it, right? Find that Trojan horse story, think about what gives social currency, and so on. And in case it's helpful, there's an application guide on my website, just jonahberger.com/resources that you can download and work on with your teams. Because again, it's not random, it's not luck, and it's not chance. There's a science behind why people talk and why they share. If we understand that science, we can craft contagious content, we can build more effective messages and ideas, and we can get our stuff to catch on. So thank you guys very much. I wanted to save at least a couple minutes for questions, so I'll do that now. I have the chat window open. I don't know if you guys want to share questions directly to me or someone else will forward them to me, but I'm looking at the chat message, and so I'm happy to respond to any questions now. Or if the Stukin team wants to mention any of me, I'm happy to handle those as well.
Jonah, we'll look at the chat, and if we see some questions come in specifically for you, since you have that pulled up, we'll just answer those on the fly. So if you have questions for Jonah, just chat those in, and he's monitoring that. We have about 4 minutes left, and then we'll jump into the next speaker. But yeah, so Jonah, first question, where do you teach? Again, from Steve.
I teach at the Wharton School at the University of Pennsylvania.
Okay. How about I just read you the questions? Does that sound fine?
Yeah, sure. Great. Sounds good.
Cool. So how do you recommend that people to talk about your company? So how do you recommend to get people to talk about your company?
Yeah. I think the key is really understanding why people talk and why they share. I didn't get started by teaching digital marketing. I got started teaching a course called Contagious, How Products, Ideas, and Behaviors Catch On. And that course is all about why we share the stuff we share, how social networks diffuse information, and how that leads things to catch on. And so I think it's really easy when we think about digital marketing to get sucked into the technology. The technology is certainly important, but as we saw today, technology can be challenging sometimes. What's more important is the psychology, why people talk and why they share. And so that to me is really key. Understanding the behavioral science, in this case, understanding the steps that lead people to talk about and share all sorts of products and ideas, starting with those, right? And so really saying, why might someone buy your product or service? What are the underlying motivations that might drive that decision? And how by us understanding why people talk and why they share, can we get them to talk about us?
Awesome. Jonah, do you have any favorite stories or maybe case studies that you use specifically in any of your classes to convey some of these specific marketing lessons on word of mouth and virality?
Oh yeah, I mean, we saw a couple of them today, right? I think Please Don't Tell is a great story, a bar hidden inside a hot dog restaurant, right? Of a great story of where making something more secret gives it more attention. I love the Please Don't Tell story about blending an iPhone, which we didn't get into all today. But in each chapter of the book, I tell stories about a variety of different companies and organizations and different products or services. There's a great one that starts the book about $100 cheesesteak, about how a restaurant got attention, a high-end steakhouse got attention through a lowly cheesesteak. And so I think stories really do a great job of conveying these ideas. And so whenever I teach them, I really rely on the stories because I think they're a powerful tool.
Remind folks your books that you have available, and they're all on Amazon, so you can. And I'm assuming that's where you would send folks to Amazon to get Contagious and Invisible Influence.
Yeah, I like both books. Both are great. I think for this audience, I think Contagious is probably the best fit. Yep. Invisible Influence is also useful, but really Contagious is the one that's squarely focused on these ideas. Not only do I assign it in my classes, but it's assigned in hundreds of courses around the United States. And it's really a great way to introduce people to the why of sharing, which I think is a really important tool. I work with lots of clients and organizations that want to know, well, how do people, how can I get people to buy more of my stuff, to get my messages and ideas to catch on? And to do that, we have to understand why people share.
Great. So in about an hour in the next session, we'll have another giveaway, and we're actually going to give away one of Jonah's books of Contagious. And we have a swag bag that we'll send out to the winner, and in there will be Contagious. So what he's spoken about today in this session will include that book in that giveaway. So make sure that you pay attention for that. Jonah, hey, we appreciate you coming on.
Yeah.
We'll make sure that your slide deck gets into the final version that we do send out.
Sounds
so
great.
We'll just lace it over.
Perfect.
We had a lot of questions about that. People are excited. So appreciate your time.
Well, thank you guys so much, and enjoy the rest of the presentations.